Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Carrie Miller, and it's my pleasure to introduce Mimi Ludwig. She's had a long and varied career, starting out as an engineer at AT&T, Lucent, and Nagar, and in 2005, she had the opportunity to change careers. She went back to school to become an occupational therapist at Misericordia University. While she was going to the weekend OT program, she started working at Good Shepherd Rehabilitation Network and eventually became the Research and Telemedicine Program Manager. After 10 years, she retired in 2016 to take care of her daughter Stacy and to concentrate on developing more programs as president of the Autism Society of the Lehigh Valley, which is a nonprofit affiliate of the Autism Society of America. Without further ado, please welcome Mimi Ludwig.
Thank you very much, Carrie. It's an honor to be here. My presentation today is as much about my daughter Stacy's journey as it is about my journey as a mother. I am sure that I made some mistakes along the way, but this shaped my world both professionally and personally. And I just want to let you know, Stacy gave me permission to tell our story. So first, I want to thank everybody for coming to one of the last sessions of the day. And even though we can't be here together, we can stay connected. As parents, we can't do this alone, as it takes a lot of people to help us through this journey. In preparing for this presentation, I found many other parents, caregivers, and professionals that tell their journeys through books, videos, and yes, TED Talks, so that others can learn from them. One that I found that was interesting is Coach Elaine Hall, who has a son with autism. And it took all of her skills and resources utilizing theater, music, and movement to create a space of deep connection, acceptance, and appreciation. Don't we all want that? It takes a village to raise a child. That's the old adage, but she adds a line. It takes a child with autism to raise the consciousness of a village. Today I will talk about my journey, which centers around the world of autism and mental health, and then also talk about resilience in the face of this pandemic. So before I begin our journey, I'd like to talk a little bit about the background information, and you can look up a lot of the statistics online, but right now we want to talk about autism spectrum disorder is a developmental and neurological disorder known to begin in childhood, and it lasts through a person's lifetime. We do have a lot of adults now being diagnosed with autism, but most likely that occurred earlier. That's what we think. We want to say that this quote from a behavioral analysis therapy group was really great because it reminds us that we have a heart to help, but we also need love and care for these children, youth, and adults. So our parental journey is a lifelong one. And if you allow me to say that we all need a harvest full of hope to continue to love them and accept them for who they are over the years while enabling them to be as independent as possible. Also, because we're here to remind ourselves about mental health awareness, we want to talk about the fact that many sources say that our individuals with autism have additional diagnosis by the time they are teenagers. That was true of my daughter. Many of our youth and young adults have need for special mental health services, medication management, and counseling, and that is why it's important for me to join this conference today. It is important, though, that many individuals also have significant anxiety, especially during the pandemic, and that many times that drives their thoughts and behaviors. In particular, last night, while I'm trying to sleep for this conference, my daughter gets up and she's really worried about her belt test for karate tonight. She said, "Mom, can you give me a hug? Mom, can we practice some meditation? What can I do?" You know? And so we talked about the things that she learned in counseling, practicing some of those things, and it did help. In Stacy's case, she was dominantly in terms of ADHD. I think that really limited some of her academic abilities and on to being able to perform specific tasks. But interestingly, her obsessions, I think, helped her focus through those things that were difficult for her to do. And at the end, I'll explain a little bit more about that. But in her early 20s, she was also diagnosed with bipolar type 2, and we went through a bunch of different medications until we found the right one, and she can control herself much better now, and she's a happy person, and that's what we are looking for. A note, my father also had bipolar, and it apparently skipped a generation. So just a little about numbers, and that is that if you look at CDC from 2017, there's over 5 million adults in the United States that have autism. And we need to look that I'm not the only one going through this. So when I saw these numbers, how large they were, I realized that there were a lot of people going through exactly the same thing, maybe not perfectly the same, but some things that we can learn. And when we talk about closer to home in Pennsylvania, the latest data from the ASSERT, which is Autism Services, Education, Resources, and Training, which is a collaboration between A.J. Drexel Autism Institute, Penn State College of Medicine, and UPMC. They did a study in 2011 that was updated in 2014, and over 36,000 adults are by 2020 are in Pennsylvania, and I think that number is actually a little bit higher, but there's no particular numbers on that. But beyond the statistics, we want to really look at who they are as individuals. So one of the first things I had to do was learn to ask for help, and I was working in industry, and I didn't know about autism. They didn't say autism. In 1995, they said pervasive developmental delay not otherwise specified. At the time, I didn't know what that was. So, fortunately, there was early intervention, and then came the speech therapist, and we still, well, maybe 5 years ago, still were writing Christmas cards to Judy to thank her for allowing my daughter to talk or helping us have her talk. We were fortunate that she came to the house and trained us on how to work with her on a daily basis to enable her language to come out, which about 4 or 5 years old she was able to talk. And now, of course, she doesn't stop, so we're good. And along the way, we had a lot of great teachers. We had intermediate 21 after 3, lots of occupational therapists for her poor motor coordination and bilateral integration issues. Even today, when we're cooking, I have to remind her to put her left hand on the bowl and stir with her right. She is 27, so I just want to mention we've come a long way. But some things are still true. But we had a lot of help, and so there are many challenges that my husband and I realized at some point that she wasn't going to be able to read and write fluently. She wasn't going to be able to do arithmetic, and we loved math and science. She does love science, so that's good. But she has an intellectual disability, okay? And about 30% of children with autism have an intellectual disability. I think what really came as a reckoning was when she was in 7th grade. She kind of crashed a little bit because of a medication management issue. And fortunately, after a couple of months, we got her Stacy back. But it was at that time that we realized she was going to have to no longer be in learning support classrooms, but be in life skill classrooms, where the academics wasn't as rigorous, and they were working on sort of life skills, social skills, work skills, and things like that. And by 10th grade, by 10th grade, she was in work-based learning programs, and we had, again, I did have a good experience. But as the president of the Autism Society of Lehigh Valley, I want to let you know that we hear from a lot of parents that their children's education is very difficult and not working for them, especially in this pandemic. We've heard from a lot of people, I think, with children with autism and without autism, that they're just struggling being on Zoom. It's not for everybody. But some of our kids actually, because of the bullying in school, were already doing homeschooling because they didn't want to face the other kids that were bullying them so bad. So we do have to make sure that we understand that I may have had an experience that was good. We do recognize that there are other people that have different experiences. So what I'm going to talk today about is our experiences. So by her late teens, though, she was able to attend several transition programs. And that was really important because as a teenager with an intellectual disability, she had the opportunity to do transition programs. And in today, I do believe that there's more transition programs, but you do have to fight for them and make sure that you can get OVR involved. And I believe that there's a lot more that they do to try to get the youth involved in work experiences, which is really important. And at that point, she graduated from Project Search, which was a great program, which was internship-based, which is really important, because oftentimes our young adults and youth do not get opportunities to build their skills, stamina, and job responsibility, which is really great when you have an internship. On an interesting note, her Project Search teacher was also her elementary school teacher, so it was really great that she got to see her when she was a child, and then as she growing up, getting ready to graduate at 21. And very importantly, she got the Ben Yorgi Award, which is on the lower right or left-hand corner. She was so excited to be able to get an award, which many of our students graduating from high school don't get, but the Ben Yorgi Foundation is a wonderful foundation and gave her that award. And today, my daughter is a people person and really enjoys talking to people. So there are challenges. I don't want to make everything negative because while we do struggle and parents have to watch their children not be able to do what they thought they could do easily, there are also many blessings. We need to see their abilities. She got me involved in Girl Scouts. That was great, and that was on my crazy hair day. She was a junior there. She had to, make sure my hair was just right. And we loved to camp together. She loved dancing, Irish dancing, and she loved Special Olympics. But unfortunately, with Special Olympics over time, she got really difficult with being concerned about losing. I know that a lot of people are concerned about losing, but when somebody's screaming, walking out the door, that's not good. So, that we eventually had to do other things with her. I think the important thing here is to see the inner person, okay, and that they are loving, caring, and sympathetic individuals. Stacy also loves scheduling and keeps me on track, which is a good thing since we do so many events. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the cliff after 21. So we go through all the school, and you have the IDEA, but now at 21, services are really based on eligibility, and you have to do all the paperwork for that, and parents now responsible for coordinating the services if you're lucky enough to have the home and community-based waiver. And that is for people with intellectual disabilities. There are often, for those who don't have an intellectual disability, there are autism waivers, but they're really hard to come by, and many of the people in our groups don't have waiver services and still are not able to work or have any programs. Now, when we say waiver services, it means that they can go to a day program, and if you're lucky enough to get a consolidated waiver, you have housing options. But for right now, most of my friends and I are looking for day programs, and we're looking for meaningful work or volunteering that matches the person's interests. So we went through a bunch of them, and I worked with the supports coordinators, and a lot of the ones in the Lehigh Valley are good for some people. They weren't the best for my daughter. She'd be walking around talking, and that sounds like a lot of good things, right, for people who are working all day. But can you imagine the rest of your life walking around and talking to people? I just couldn't do it. We want her to be able to do meaningful activities. And at the same time, we were dealing with trying to understand her bipolar nature, and sometimes she didn't even want to go there. She didn't want to do anything. So talk a little bit about the fact that she went through counseling. One day she said, "Mom, I want to talk to somebody else besides you." I said, "That's good. Let's get a counselor." So she went to counseling, and some of the things she really took away, as I mentioned to you before, is the counselor said, name 5 things in the room that are objects that you can, just to ground her down, make sure she's balanced, right? And she said, "Mom, can I say 5 things that make me happy?" I'm like, "Sure." That was really wonderful. And to this day, she uses that when she's feeling sad or anxious. She will do that. Okay. So, parenting and autism spectrum disorder. This kind of, as I was looking for some material for today, I found this as a presentation from Dr. Pickering at the, I guess it was the Seattle Children's Hospital, okay? And, you kind of know that things are difficult for parents, especially if they have more than one child. But it kind of said that there's quantitatively greater and qualitatively more complex parenting than a typical child. We're always accommodating, modifying the environment, providing structure, routine, and occupation, managing noncompliance, managing distress. And for Stacy, she's now just being able to learn to walk across the street and look both ways. She's just always thinking of other things. So in conclusion, for this part, parenting is hard. But I find as a person, it's healing for me to help and be kind to others. We kind of need that in today's world. There's so many negative things out there. And I find for me, my personality type is I want to try to find things that are uplifting. However, at some point, caregivers do need some care. And I was able to find some counselors a couple of years ago because after I retired, my whole life was her, and I kind of needed to step back a little bit, find out my own interests, and we do need to take care of ourselves. So this kind of leads to a point that how when the pandemic first started, I started trying to do some of these tips, and I thought it would be nice to share them because it's important that we help care for ourselves as caregivers. We need to practice good self-care. I'm sure everybody's told you get enough sleep. That's if you can sleep. That's why I've learned some techniques to put myself in a better state of mind before sleeping. And of course, we were eating a lot. We had a staff person that was working with Stacy on Zoom. And of course, in the beginning of the pandemic, we learned to make bread. We did homemade whipped cream and applesauce because we were home. We could cook a lot. So that was something that was of interest. And it was very fortunate that I did have some help because otherwise I would have been stuck in the house. And I'm sure there are many parents that have had that experience without help. And what I wanted to do is also say that practicing shifting your attention to happy things is important. My daughter kind of taught me that. Like when you're sad, name 5 things that make you happy. And last night, when she was anxious, she included me in that list of happy thoughts. I was excited, So I think that, to wrap this up, that, having some routine of things that you can do, even for 10 or 15 minutes. I try to do yoga every morning before she wakes up. A few days, she's had to do yoga with me because she wakes up, I'm sorry, I'm doing my yoga. Okay. And also self-compassion to say that everybody's struggling and to give yourself a little bit of a break. The other thing is we developed a parent group for our young adult group, and it's been really great to share our experiences with other parents. Okay. So it turns out that I had this interest to become an expert myself. I really liked Stacy's occupational therapist, and I did have the opportunity to change careers. So I went back to school because I love school. And I wanted to learn more about autism and become a professional to help others. But I also need to talk about the fact that my daughter had some unusual circumstances, and it was through learning some applied behavioral analysis that I was able to get her toilet trained. Not something you normally deal with a 12-year-old, but at the same time, she says, Mom, I don't need occupational therapy anymore. I'm too old. So, and it was at the same time that I worked at Good Shepherd, and after, through the many things that I did at Good Shepherd, then I retired after 10 years to take care of Stacy. You can imagine how hard I retired early. I'm a workaholic. I loved being able to help other people, and all of a sudden, I'm just here with Stacy. And so it was a really radical change for me, but, we've been able to come through it together. When I was at Misericordia, I began to ask myself, what does it feel like to be autistic? Trying to understand my daughter and others like her. So I first found Temple Grandin. She had a lot of great books, and this is just one quote to give you an idea that she's able to tell her experiences, but sometimes she's also able to tell others' experiences as well. In this particular case, she says, when I did stims, such as dribbling sand through my fingers, it calmed me down. When I stimmed, sounds that hurt my ears stopped. Most kids with autism do these repetitive behaviors because it feels good in some way, and it may counteract an overwhelming sensory environment. It's just a glimpse into their world. Today, we have TED Talks, and we have some really interesting autistic adults that have gone through a lot of education and are self-advocates. And this one is Bill Wong, is an occupational therapist. That's why I had to include that. For autistic individuals to succeed in this world, they need to find their strengths and the people that will help them to get their hopes and dreams. In order to do so, ability to make and keep friends is a must. Among these friends, there must be mentors to show them the way, and a supportive environment where they can learn from their mistakes is what we as a society need to create for them. Now, isn't that what we all want, right? But for those with autism, it's really important, and potentially for people with any mental health challenge. We need to find people that are sympathetic to us, that can help guide us, okay? And to find those that will help them navigate the adult world. So this is going to play a video of Dr. Den Houding, I hope I said that right, an Australian research psychologist who was diagnosed with autism at 25.
Most people understand autism through medical assumptions. They understand autism as a medical condition, a disorder, even as a tragedy. In the medical paradigm, we're taught to believe that there's a correct way to develop neurologically, that there's a right way for our brains to work, the normal way, and that any other way of developing is wrong and needs to be treated and fixed. In 2011, when I was 25 years old, I was diagnosed with autism. And it wasn't a tragedy. It was the best thing that's ever happened to me. Finding out that I'm autistic, it brought me an overwhelming sense of relief. My whole life up to that point finally made sense. My paradigm about myself shifted. I wasn't a failed neurotypical person. I was a perfectly good autistic person. But in those early days, I wasn't running a complex research project. I was just trying to learn more about myself. And learn about myself I did. I was bombarded with information. I was bombarded with information about my deficits. Autism causes deficits in social interaction, deficits in communication, restricted and repetitive behaviours, sensory processing deficits. For me, that information just didn't make sense. Finding out that I'm autistic had completely changed my life for the better. How could something that was so positive for me be such a bad thing? We need services and supports that will help us to live long, happy, and fulfilling lives while respecting our right to be authentically autistic.
Thank you. It's amazing to see her whole story, and there's a link to her whole TED talk at the end and the references. And we really kind of changed a little bit of what I was going to say about my daughter, because I do have to realize that she, as an adult, has her own life, and I need to accept her for who she is. And it is her responsibility also to balance our life as working with her, and also, you know, recognizing that there are family needs as well. But it was really interesting to see this talk as inspirational. Now, the next part I want to say, this is again just my personality. If it doesn't exist, create it. My concern was that at this point, my daughter was really not doing a lot of exciting things. You know, she really couldn't work, and we tried working with some friends of mine to create a job for her, but it was really difficult for her to focus. And so over time, we ended up doing other things. So at this point, I'm going to shift to the philosophy of occupational therapy, because that's what I studied for, and that occupations are activities that bring meaning to the daily lives of individuals, families, communities, and populations to enable them to participate in society. And I feel that's kind of what we do at the Autism Society of Lehigh Valley, which our mission is to improve the lives of all living with autism in the Lehigh Valley. I first got involved in the Autism Society in 2010 and became the president, of this all-volunteer organization, which I loved. As it turns out, you can volunteer for as many hours as you want, and I love to be an administrator and organizer. That's my special talent. So the Autism Society Lehigh Valley in the olden days, has now 10 volunteer board members. We host activities in the community for families of individuals with autism and host social groups. We also worked with many organizations in the community for extra things that those agencies couldn't do on their own. And the goal was to create an autism-friendly Lehigh Valley. So last year we did several birthday celebrations because many of our children don't get invited to birthday parties, and we wanted to make their day special with a group of people. So we did a Chuck E. Cheese birthday party in March, just before everything shut down. We didn't know about the pandemic at the time. And then we also have done other things since. We've had community outings for children, and we do activities such as snow tubing and Dutch Springs for all ages. We've had some Zumbathons last year, and we also have young adult groups, and now we have a teen group. But until last October, we primarily had a young adult group, and that we had almost 60 people at our February meeting because we had about 30 young adults, our staff, and we do hire professionals to run our group, and their parents. So, we're not going to be doing indoor events for that kind of a group for a while. We also have a Spanish-speaking support group. So since the pandemic, you can imagine everybody's life changed. How do we reinvent ourselves? How do we stay relevant? And how do we help people with autism in our community? So we created, the first thing we did was have a drive-by birthday party, and that was something that we could do outside at least. But it turns out that, when we tried to do that again, people really didn't want to do a drive-by, so we created birthday celebrations at outdoor venues where we could social distance and wear masks and everything. We also, I didn't show this here, we had a Mask for Autism campaign as well, where we had 3 people sewing masks, including myself, with kind of cute patterns and everything. You can probably get them now, but at the time, it wasn't available. And we just finished a celebration at a farm. We also have online teen groups, preteen and teen groups, 2 times a month. And we have a professional, Rob Harvey, who is wonderful at gaming. And of course, our teens love to talk about games. But these games are social games, and they're getting at interaction. And these teens actually teach us a lot about Zoom, as it turns out, Zoom backgrounds and how to do stuff. And so it's very interesting to watch them interact. This is not to say that all teens can do this. Some of them can't, but the ones that are in our group have been adapting. We also have a young adult group, and a lot of times our young adults will say, hey, when can we meet again in person? And I say, well, when we can meet safely with about 25, 30 people in a room that you are not very close to. So we do them now online. Again, not all of our adults can join us, but we have now up to 15 young adults that come every other week, and they really enjoy our groups. We also now have an online parent support group. So, looking for those meaningful things, my friend Cindy Lowe and I co-founded something called Creative Abilities, which is just a division of the Autism Society. And we started working on finding local artists that could work with our folks to do creative projects. I'm finding that many of our children, youth, and adults love the arts, either singing or music or various different arts, performing arts. And, growing up in an engineering sense, I always thought, well, the kids with autism were always really like math and science like I did, but many of them really like the arts. And so we started working with a variety of people, one of which I want to mention is Jill Odegaard at Cedar Crest College. We had 6 of our young adults go to her CREATE class last fall, and that's community-related experiences in art through engagement. And this class was a combination of social engagement and art that fuels movements, and they believe impacts communities. It did in our case. And as you can see in the lower corner, Stacy is showing off one of the papers that she made that she embedded fibers in. And I just want to also show you that we just recently with Jill did a online paper making class, and Stacy loves different wool fibers. We embedded them into the paper. How cool is that, right? And during the beginning of the pandemic, we sent out handmade cards to people because we didn't want to go shopping to get them. In addition, we really believe that yoga and mindfulness is important. So we have Sarah Dennehy was working with us on a monthly basis before the pandemic, and now, in fact, this Thursday we'll have another class with our teens and young adults online. We really do believe that we all need to be able to, maybe you can't do yoga, but certainly mindfulness. And there are some of our adults, by the way, that really just want to watch because it calms them down, just the deep breathing, right? They don't like the rest of the movement. And I want to say, too, that a lot of times our families join us. It's not just for the young adults. Okay, so one thing that's interesting is that as we were doing all these different art classes and workshops, people made enough of their artwork to do art shows. So we had 4 art shows in 3 different places. The art establishment has been great at hosting some of our events, and they also have a special needs art show as well. And we were at Color Me Mine, and I didn't have a picture actually of the C. Leslie Smith art show, but our kids got used to selling their artwork. They loved that, you know. And some of them said, I'm not selling it, I want to keep it. But we could at least display it. And in the upper, I guess it's left, I'm not sure if it's left or right here, corner, you see Stacy being interviewed by Channel 69 News. When she ever has a chance to go up to a news reporter and say, I'd like to be interviewed, then they say, oh, sure, I'll interview you. So she had to say something. So we're good. She loves to be on camera, as you'll see in a couple of slides from now. And one of the things we do is we had a fiber arts and wet felting class with somebody, Kim, and we made a lot of different fabric that can then be mounted, and they're made out of sheep curls and sheep wool. And yes, my daughter is fascinated by wool and all these kinds of things, so we had to go to a lot of fiber fests along the way. Okay. Of course, my fingers are not working. Okay. Now, our crowning achievement is when Cindy actually called Matt Helm and said, hey, we saw you in the paper, and we want to see if you could do a mural with our group. And so Matt said, sure, we'll go ahead and do that. And it was just a great opportunity for our youth and young adults with autism to be part of a prominent and permanent project. And it was also partially funded by the Lehigh Valley Arts Council, which in the next video was sponsored by them and created. So if you could play the video. It's about 3.5 minutes.
Muralist, teacher, and Allentown native Matt Helm has worked over the last year with the Creative Abilities Group, an organization created by 2 parents to create art opportunities for their young adult children with autism.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Retch. I am the founder and program director for Michaela's Voice, and I am here today with Matt Helm, who is a professional muralist and a teaching artist. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to see you.
I understand a group started by Mimi Ludwig and Cindy Lowe contacted you, Creative Abilities, and asked you if you would help coordinate, be a teacher or teaching artist for a group of some amazing kids and young adults with autism. I believe that their families, their siblings, and some friends were involved. Could you share a little bit about that?
I was doing a mural project in Allentown, and Cindy contacted me after seeing that I had worked with some students and some other community groups on that mural. And you know, she was interested in doing a collaborative mural project with the Creative Abilities Group, with the group of young adults. And I was excited for the opportunity, so we were able to put it together, and we were able to create a program that it was over the course of several months, and our final product, although not quite installed yet, will be installed in the Lehigh Valley Hospital in Allentown.
This is Stacy. What kind of art do you like?
I like to draw.
You like to
I
draw?
like to paint.
And what about?
I like to do fiber arts too.
I want to talk to you today about the cool project that you did with Matt.
He's awesome, and he's good, and I really like to talk to him.
He helped you create 3 panels.
Yep.
And they're going to go to Lehigh Valley Hospital. That is really exciting.
Yeah.
How do you think the patients are going to feel when they see your artwork?
Happy.
Happy. When I spoke to Matt, he said that he rolled out a big sheet of paper and you all were able to contribute your ideas?
Yeah.
Do you remember what you might have drawn on the table?
I draw people who are in the hospital.
Would you like to tell the audience anything?
Please come see me at Lehigh Hospital.
I am here today with Bill Kent, who is the president of Lehigh Valley Hospital Network. You're actually here in a more important role today.
You bet.
Today you are here as Ian's father.
Yes.
What was your favorite part of working with Matt?
It was amazing to see Matt's artistic mind translate this pretty complex project into sort of chunks that each artist could handle and could be inspired by and participate in, so that they could be excited with the final product and really feel like they've contributed something that, as you know, it's going to be displayed at our 17th Street campus at Lehigh Valley Health Network.
Thank you for playing that. It turns out that it's not installed at Lehigh Valley Hospital yet. We're hoping sometime in November. As you can imagine, the challenges of trying to put a mural on some walls in a hospital at this point, but we're hoping soon. Now, since the pandemic, again, we're trying to figure out how do you translate all these art things into real projects that you can do online. We did do the paper making online with Jill, where I was able to get all of the different materials, and I drove around with my daughter and delivered all these kits, which I'm going to be doing again for this Sunday's workshop as well. It gets us out of the house. It gets us to see people in our group live individually, still social distance. But then we were trying to figure, okay, we have a play coming up. We do this in June. How are we going to do a play on Zoom? So we actually had to learn a lot about how to do that, and I learned to do a lot of editing. I mean, I did some simple editing before, but now I'm going to play a scene for you. It's a couple of minutes, so you can see our young adults really enjoyed being able to play their favorite characters, and Rob Harvey is actually the playwright and director. He takes each individual's characters and writes a play for them in 2.5 weeks. It's amazing. Please play the video.
To warn everyone, this could be really bad.
Hello?
Hi, Aurora. I have a message passed along to everybody. Maleficent enchanted Ricochet Rabbit to carry the play to the entire world.
Of course.
Hello?
Amelia, you have to pass along this message. Maleficent has granted Ricochet a whole new world.
Got it. Hello?
Hokey, I need to give you a message.
It'll cost you.
Oh, never mind.
All right. But you'll owe me.
What?
Nothing. What's the message?
Maleficent and Ricochet just bought a whole blue squirrel.
Okay, sure. See ya.
Hello?
Cinderella, I have an important message.
Mm-hmm.
$5, please.
Nope.
Fine. Maleficent just taught Ricochet a baton twirl.
Got it.
Hello?
Hello? And this is important. Ricochet told to eat a pearl.
Okay.
Hello?
Elsa, where's Anna?
Oh, she's in the bathroom.
I knew Disney princesses is the bathroom. Okay, well, pass along this message. Magnificent may orchestrate hat to hole.
Gross, but okay.
Hello?
Carly, an important message. Maleficent has a train full of girls.
Okay. I will pass it along. Hi, everyone. I have an important message. Maleficent has toes that are curled.
No. We'll pass it along.
Hey, buddy.
Beef, we have an important message. Maleficent milks a bird.
Got it.
Hello.
The 7, like Star Wars.
Okay. Thanks. Bye, Beast.
Bye, Stephen.
Well, that didn't work at all.
Be safe, everyone. We can do this.
Can't go to it all with goodbye.
Oh no, here we go again.
Thank you for playing that. The folks really had a great time this summer playing their favorite characters, and this was a scene where, as you could tell, the heroes of the story trying to figure out how to get the message out that Maleficent's done some very nasty deeds. And of course, the title is Friends Are Mightier Than the Plague, and I think people needed to act that out this summer because they needed to feel like people cared about them. And we're now doing a teen play on Zoom, and that's going to be an interesting thing because it's going to be a lot of, I think 10 boys and 1 girl, and it'll be a lot of, I have to learn some more digital animation tricks. So it's kind of an interesting time to explore this, and so, just something to think about. We also started doing, actually the slide doesn't show, but it's creative inner voice through stories and handmade books. And we have, here, that fly in the house. But anyway, we have an instructor that's from New York, which again, in the past, we wouldn't have been able to pay somebody to drive out to New York every week. But Peggy has been really great and helping us teach how to develop somebody's stories. And a lot of our young adults, they love to tell stories. And even those that don't really relate to stories can draw them. And I want to say at this point that we do have some families that didn't have a car before. So getting them to a lot of our activities and events was really hard. But now, being online, a lot of our folks that didn't have a car before can actually attend all of our events online. And so, this is just an exciting time for our group to try to explore a variety of different artistic venues and to develop their talents. So in conclusion, I want to mention that my journey as a parent of a young adult continues, and I'm very much proud of her. Her autism or very intense interests helped her overcome several barriers. Her gross motor deficits, yes, they were there and they're still there, but javelin, anyone? Sports camp, a Special Olympics, she learned to throw a javelin farther than I could. She loved rhythmic gymnastics. She loved performing. She didn't like practicing, but she loved performing, okay? We did a collaboration with Good Shepherd last year where they had a workshop of art of dance and movement, and she got to dance outside with the Festival Unbound in October last year, and she loved Irish dancing and still loves Irish music. It's not easy for her to dance, it's just that she loves it. So she's a fan of these things. I'm not expecting her to be perfect. Sensory issues, she hates me doing her hair, okay? But for Irish dancing, yes, those are wigs. You have to go through a stage that starts off like Cousin It, and then you put the hair up, and then eventually you put the wig on so that it doesn't fall off when you're dancing. So anyway, she loves being the princess. Also, she has an intense interest in animals. Now she's on to pangolins, which I won't get into, but her previous one was sloths. She loves sloths. She says it seems she loves them because they're just like her, She loves Lehigh Valley Sue's Bean the Sloth, who painted a picture for her on one of her birthdays. Delays and difficulty in learning to speak and pragmatic language deficits. Interesting enough, in 2015, Stacy spoke in front of a Special Olympics track and field event to more than 500 people. She has no problem getting up and talking in front of people. She loves it, in fact. In 2019, she came with me on a Day of the Hill for Autism Society National, where we talked about national and local issues and got to see state senators, not senators and representatives for Pennsylvania, and to talk about things that she would like as services. And then, as you saw, she just got to sing and play some lines for her role as Cinderella, and she got to sing, "A dream is a wish your heart makes." I cry every time. So she also wanted to make sure that today you wish her well, because she has a breaking board competition, not competition, it's just a breaking board for karate tonight. And she was up a lot last night worrying about it. So on that ado, I would just want to say that that fortunately she included me in her list of 5 happy things last night. So I conclude now. And if you'd like, I'd like to take some questions. Yeah. Oh, perfect.
Ashley says, I want to say you are a beautiful person, and your daughter and I have no doubt she will break that board tonight at karate.
Thank you very much. I will let her know that. She was worried.
Thank you for sharing.
It's not easy for me to share all these things. I'm not used to talking about this. So thank you. Thanks for inviting me. Thank you so much.